Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Tenchijk. How you guys doing? Y'all good? I'm glad. I decided to do something on Sundays. Mm, I felt like it wasn't fair for people that watch my videos because of my religious stuff, and yeah, so I decided to keep Sunday a religious video. So if you guys are not into that whole religious stuff, you know, you can back off now. I don't know. I was kind of thinking about it for a second, and I was kind of looking at my life, and there was a passage in the Bible that I read that just kind of scared the hell out of me. It's that we will all be judged when we die. Okay. Of course, this judgment for those who are believers are not about heaven or hell, but it's a judgment of how you lived your life. You know what I mean? And you're gonna get judged according to how much God gave you and how much you used it. What that basically means is, for those who didn't receive that much from God, and they didn't really, they just lived a life according to what God gave them. However, if God gave you a lot and you do nothing with it, then that's a punishment waiting for you. And what that basically means is, let's say if there was a man who heard the gospel, but he was mute, he was deaf, he couldn't preach the gospel to anybody, and he passed away. And even if he didn't do much, he gets judged accordingly. Like, he lived a decent life, being a deaf or mute person. However, God gave me an opportunity. You know what I mean? But whether people like to admit it or not, but this whole YouTube stuff, this is not from me. This is from God. Of course, to non-believers, they're like, "Yo, that's crazy talk." But every time I look at my life, there's no way that I could get the amount of subscribers that I have right now. This is impossible for me. Other people might say, "Oh, don't put yourself too down," but like I know myself. And basically, God gave me this golden opportunity, a way to influence people's hearts. Of course, not everybody will be influenced by it, sure. But when I talk about certain things, there are people out there who will accept it and take inside their hearts. But what I've kept doing in my videos is just to make people laugh, to fill their heads with utter nonsense, such as things of the world, or discuss about things that don't really truly matter, in this time of age. And I had kind of like a wake up call yesterday. You know what I mean? And what that was if I don't do anything with this, what God gave me, I'm such an evil person. And I'm taking the easy way out. And the reason why I'm so afraid, honestly, as a Christian person, to talk about Christianity is because of what people will say, how people will look down on me, which is true. There were times in my life where I had this heart without God's influence, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna take what God gave me, and I'm gonna talk about God." And I made few videos, and of course, there were a lot of people out there who was happy, and they were saying, fellow Christian brothers and sisters were saying, like, "Hey, you should keep going on with this, have faith with this." But there was a lot of people who are not believers would condemn me. They'll say bad things to me. And immediately, because I don't have the faith that God will protect me, or that this is the right way to go, I lost. I couldn't do it anymore. I was just too afraid that, if I do this, everybody's going to leave me. All this stuff that I built, see, in my mind, I feel like I built this on my own, some sort of like an empire or something. But in front of God, this is nothing. It really isn't. This is not something this is like my Babel Tower. You know what I mean? Like, I built it with my own self. I'm trying to get higher and higher and higher. But if God just, it's done. It really is. And so I decided that every Sunday, at least every Sunday, that I would at least talk about God, maybe have some fellowship with you guys, or something of the sort. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who will be disappointed because you guys want to hear the funny stuff and just, silly nonsense and stuff, and that'll come too. I ain't gonna change. That's the difference. I'm not gonna change to a certain extent, but I do want to give a little opportunity for those who don't hear about Christ that often to have another side of it, and experience heaven like all of us. All of us deserve to be in. But with that said, I just want to talk to you guys about my salvation, how I was saved. And I think that speaking about God and speaking about Christianity sometimes is really difficult because, like all things, you need a prerequisite. You know what I mean? Like, you need to know certain things for other things to make sense. But without all that, it's just mumble jumble. You know what I'm saying? So I think the best way to do it is so that you guys could relate to me, okay? Because I'm like a normal person like you, and I've been through this journey that I was able to have this faith in God. And of course, other people might look at my life and say like, hey, but you live such a sinful life and all this kind of stuff. But that's why you guys could relate to it. You don't have to be perfect. In fact, the worse you are, the easier it is for you to get saved. That's the truth of it. And there's the sad thing about this world is that there's so many false prophets. You don't know what's real. You don't know what's fake. This sounds right. That sounds right. Oh, did Jesus have a baby? Like all this crazy nonsense that you hear and you can't filter it out. And I just hope that I'll be able to mediate that and just be in the middle between you and that knowledge so that I could filter out some of the stuff for you. Of course, not everything might be true. I'm not all knowing, obviously, but just I hope that you guys could give me the benefit of the doubt that I do know what I'm talking about. So I'll just kind of talk about my salvation to start off. It's a little personal story, but maybe you guys could relate to it. Okay. Now I was born 1987. I don't have to go that deep, but I was born, and my father actually was a Presbyterian pastor. Okay, and I was born in a family, and I was forced to believe in God. But at the time, it was just forced. What did I know about God? For me, all I thought God was just some hairy old man up in the sky, watching us. I always thought he was a pervert, and I couldn't take a dump without just like, man, because my dad would always tell me that, he watches you all the time. So it used to freak me out. So even at a young age, it was mostly about the outer appearance, how I looked outside and towards people. And the funny thing is that everybody else outside or inside the church, if you will look at me and think that I'm this perfect little kid. You know what I mean? Like this perfect kid that follows God like the little lamb, they used to call me. Such a cute kid that just obeys God and prays. And I used to be very showy. You know what I mean? I was like, 5 years old, but I knew exactly what they wanted. So I'll go in front of the church, when everybody's praying, and I would kneel down. I'll be like, hallelujah, and all this BS. I knew it was BS, but I still did it because I felt that if I get the recognition of other people, and if they tell me that I'm a good person, that I was a good person. But yeah, that's not the case, right? And so I grew older. I grew older and older, and I knew more of the doctrine. I knew more of the knowledge of God, but yet I knew nothing at all now that I think about it. I know nothing about God back in the days. It was just action. I paid a lot of offering very showingly. I pulled out my wallet and be like, "It's a $20 bill. Oh, where is it going? Oh," and then I'll put it inside the offering case, and the people be like, "Oh my God, like that's like all you have." And like I would read the Bible, I would read it every day showingly. I'll be like, "Guess what I'm reading?" and I would pray very openly so that people could see me. Of course, I didn't say that out loud, but it was just the heart that I had deep inside, very secretly, And while everybody else was playing basketball and they're just having fun, I was inside the room with my dad praying. I hated it, of course, but I still did it because I felt that will grant me the ticket to heaven. That's what I needed to do. I needed to do a lot of good deeds to accumulate so that I could go to heaven. That's what I thought, and that's what I was taught. A lot of churches used to teach like that, but that's a very wrong doctrine. But as I grew up, I suffered with sin. This sin of mine would never leave. Of course, everybody has their own idea of what sin is, but according to the Bible, sin is a disconnection from God. And because you're disconnected, there's a lot of side effects that come with that, which is the sinning that you see in your normal life, such as stealing, cussing, killing. I didn't kill nobody. I'm just saying, like, you're fighting, hating people, coveting, lustful thoughts, all these things. It would be inside my heart. And it used to drive me nuts because it contradicted what I believed in. It's like, dude, if I believe in God, I'm supposed to be a good person, but I can't help it. I could only but look at a girl and be like, damn, like I need her, or like I want to have something, I want to steal it. And I hate people so much. I want to beat the shit out of them. And I cuss a lot too. So even at a young age, I was just like, man, I don't even know what to do, And so the remedy for that at the time was you have to pray to God and ask for forgiveness. That's what they told me. So that's what I did. Every day just praying to God, dear God. Now, I used to cry, man. I used to cry all the time, just like, God, please forgive me. I'm such a bad person. I did this, I did that. But inside my heart, I didn't feel like I was a bad person. I was like, yeah, I guess it's bad, but not that bad. I always had that thought. And I continue living my life like this. And later on, as I grew older, I became more mature and I started to see the word for myself. And I realized sin cannot enter heaven. No matter what you do. I read the Bible countlessly. And no matter what you do, sin or a sinner can't enter heaven. That used to drive me nuts. It's like, what? But I ask for forgiveness all the time. So does that mean I'm a sinner still? So, yeah. I could never say that I was righteous. I never would. Because I kept looking at myself and I was like, I was too much of a sinner. And I say I believed in Jesus and he took away all my sins and all this kind of stuff. But I felt like, he didn't take away my sins. I couldn't believe it. I said I believed it. But I lived my life very hypocritically. And so there was a point in my life where I was in trouble. I was in darkness. I couldn't get out of this. So I started asking people all over the place, deacons, pastors, whomever I could, talk to that knew about the word, right? And countlessly, they all said the same thing. Pray more. Read the Bible more. Be a better person. All these things that I've been doing all my life, more than anybody else. Honestly, people of my age don't do that. But I was doing that kind of stuff. You get what I'm saying here? While everybody else was playing, I was praying for like 6-7 hours. Literally, there were times when I actually prayed like that. Or read the Bible for hours until my eyes would like cry and stuff like that. Because I wanted to get into heaven so bad. But I knew that because of this sin that I had, I couldn't get in. And I could pray and pray and pray and ask for forgiveness over and over and over again. But it would still come back and back and back. And I felt like, dude, if Jesus died for me, why do I have to keep doing this? What is this going on? Why am I still a sinner? And this bugged me and bugged me. And nobody would ever give me the right answers. They would all tell me to do the same thing that I've been kept doing. And I knew that as I grew older, I'm going to sin more. I'm not going to sin less. I gradually sinned more. If there was a chart, it'd be going like this. And so there was a point where I just made a decision. I said, hey, I'm going to hell anyways. This is impossible. I can't keep his laws. I could ask God for forgiveness 1,000,000 times and I'll still become a sinner. There is no way I could do this. So I gave up. I told my dad, hey, whatever the fuck. I said whatever the fuck to him. I can't do this anymore. And I just threw away everything. I threw away my Bible. I even stepped on it. I even stepped on the Bible. I cussed at God. I was like, dude, fuck this. I ain't going to do this anymore. This is ridiculous. And then I went towards a life of sin, like more sin. I got into drugs. I got into gangs. I started doing all these stupid things. And just ruined my life. You know what I mean? As a young kid, and I went into middle school, went to high school, just ruining my life, Of course, when I was in high school, I was kind of like calming down from the bad side, I suppose. But like, when I was just in that puberty stage, I just let loose. Just whatever I wanted to do, I just did. Thinking that I'll go to hell anyways, right? But as I grew older, fear started to come inside my heart again. Because I knew the word, whether it was Whether I knew it a lot or little, I still knew the words. And I did believe in God, whether I didn't want to believe him or not. Every time I would say something, I'm like, I feared him. And fear is a sign of humility, you know what I mean? But, there finally came a time where I was like, I'm still alive. I still have a chance. I got to find the truth. Just because these people that went to church, they didn't have the truth, doesn't mean everybody else don't have the truth. Somebody out there must have the truth. And we just kept living my life just with that thought. Then my father gave up the whole pastoring business because he was going through the same kind of problems that I was. He was a pastor, but still felt the way that I felt, And the head pastor of my father's church, like, took all the money and left. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we're like, damn, you would do us like this, right? And so it came a time where, very dark area, dark time. And then one day, my dad received a flyer from a supermarket that we went to. And this is a time when we just lived carelessly, And he just received a flyer. And most of the time, we don't pick up flyers because we know more than them. Like, I don't want to be braggy, but, like, if I was to have a Bible battle with somebody, I would murder them. I'm a dude that read the Bible. Like, I had so much knowledge in my head about the Bible. So it's like, what do you know? It's like I had that arrogant heart. But for some reason, this one particular flyer was received by this, missionary that was from Albuquerque. And my dad picked it up. He's like, whatever. And he read it. And this was so different from anything. It wasn't Mormon. It wasn't Jehovah's Witness or all that BS stuff. It was actually real gospel. It was the truth in its essence. There was undoubtedly, is that a right word? It was a truth, basically. And a person who's been looking for the truth will know what is true and what is not true. It's really hard to explain, but if you searched all your life and you finally find that truth, you just know. Because you've seen so much BS, So finally, when we found this truth, my dad read it first, and he was changed. He was freed from sin. That's the weirdest part. He was freed from sin. No matter how he lived his life, he was free from it. And that was impossible for me to think. And he told me about this and this and that. He already told me a little bit of what he read in the book, and I was like, huh. It really challenged my heart. I was like, dude, that is some epic stuff right there. And they're having a Bible seminar, so we went. And when I sat down, of course, I had this arrogant heart. I was like, what are you going to say? I already know everything. But when I heard that sermon for the first time, that truth for the first time, it was like eating manna. It was so sweet. It was something that I couldn't imagine in my life. It was just like, dude, this is it. The thing that I've been searching for all my life, this is it. And I got chills all over my body. I'm not saying that salvation is an emotional ride. It has nothing to do with your emotions, but it's discovery. It's discovering the truth for what it is. And so when I heard it, I'll admit I wasn't changed immediately. I still had too much knowledge of myself. I had my own standards that I was keeping too much. My heart was like stone. Nobody's going to break it so easily. So when I talked to this I guess a brother, and then he started asking me these questions. He's like, are you a sinner or are you a righteous person? And immediately I knew the answer to that. I'm a sinner. Who isn't a sinner? Everybody's a sinner. And he asked me another question, like, where do sinners go? I was like, well, sinners go to hell. So where are you going? I'm like, what? What do you say? I didn't want to answer that because I was like, wait a minute. That sounds like hell to me. And I already knew the answer. I was like, yeah, okay. This is something that I already knew from past, that I was going to hell and shit. But I couldn't admit it in front of him. I was like, nah, dude, but I asked for forgiveness. And I do this, I do that. I was like, are you a sinner? I was like, yeah. And where are you going? It's like, I realized that if I can't beat this dude in a battle between what's sin and what's righteous, what am I going to say in front of God? Am I going to have the same conversation with God? Well, but are you a sinner? Yeah, but what? The dude's God, man. I can't argue with him. I can't put my evidence in front of him. There's nothing to show for it. There's nothing that I did in my life that just, grants me passage to heaven. There's nothing that I've done. I suppose I was a better person than other people that I thought. But do I still have sin? Yeah. And was I still a sinner? Yeah. Where was I going? You know what I'm saying here? And then he started telling me these stories about what the Bible is, what the true gospel is. The gospel is a love letter to human beings. It's telling us what God has done. He knows that you can't go to heaven on your own. And unless you truly try, unless you sweat blood and tears and you really, really try to keep God's laws, you won't know that you can't keep them. People that say, oh, I'm going to keep it, I'm going to try my best, that's because you haven't tried yet. You're half-assing it. If you truly, truly try to keep every single law in the Bible, 14 was it? Or in the New Testament, even the simple 10, you can't keep any of it. And then you truly fall deep and you become a person who really needs a savior. Like you really need saving. I finally, for me, my life felt like I was swimming all day. And finally got to the point where I couldn't swim anymore and I was drowning. I was suffering, I was drowning, and I really needed help, and I put my hand out. That's when I got saved. That's when I realized that's why Jesus died for me. That is exactly why Jesus died for me, because I can't do it. It's simple to say, well, I can't do it because I'm a sinner. That's very simple to say, but you really, really need to try and fail to understand that true heart, you know what I mean? That, dang, I really am a sinful person. No matter how much I try to do good, I'll do good for a little bit, but that even that good thing becomes a bad thing. Even the bad things is always bad, obviously. And that finally, when I finally realized that fact about myself, I was able to let go about my own standards, of my rock heart. I was able to just throw all that away and just accept the word for what it was. And that word was that Jesus died carrying the burden of everybody's sins. Not just me, not just you, but everybody, from past, present, and future. And although I'm living in the present right now, he took away the things from the future as well. Because if he did not take the future sin, we'd all be screwed. And he died in vain. And it's so weird because I heard this story a million times when I was back then. I heard it so many times. That, I believe in Jesus, that he took away all my sins. All my sins. I used to say that. He took away all my sins. But yet, when I professed my faith, I had sin. So am I believing in Jesus or not? It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just saying things just to say it. But when I finally realized what he has done for me, that through the baptizing of John, all the sin transferred over to Jesus, and when he died on that cross, that was his altar. And when he bled and he died and he resurrected, that means he took away my sins and he came back to show that we were righteous now. Without us being righteous, we can't have a fellowship with God. We can't be connected with God because of this sin. But if Jesus was to take away all of this sin, even if you look at yourself and you call yourself a sinner, you don't look at yourself. You look at what Jesus has done. That's faith. You know what I mean? And so when I finally believed that, when I finally realized that, you know what? He took away all my sins. 100%. 200% over. So when I live my life and I commit these are sins that I would have committed anyways. This is not some sort of like, oh, I'm lazy or how could you say that? Like you should at least try. Of course. You try not to sin after you receive salvation. But before that, you are going to sin regardless. You know what I mean? And when I finally, heard the truth, I was able to profess that I was righteous. And if nobody else, if God can't condemn me, nobody else could condemn me. If God says I'm righteous, nobody else could say that I'm a sinner. And that is faith. And when you live your life and you go to a church and they tell you that you're still a sinner, but you have to pray for forgiveness, think about this for a second. If this is your sin, this little banana peel, and Jesus died for all of it, not just a piece of the banana peel, but every single piece of the banana. And then he says, do you believe me? Do you believe what I have done for you? Do you believe that I took all of this for you? What is your answer? I think you took this much, but I still have this much to take care of on my own. I need to keep asking for forgiveness to get rid of all this. You're putting Jesus on the cross over and over and over again. And that's not faith. That's believing in yourself. That's believing in what you want to believe in your own self. And that's Satan constantly telling you that that's who you are. But if you truly believe in God and you truly believe in what Jesus has done, you could honestly, boldly profess that you are now righteous, not because of the things that you have done in your life, because you failed in your life. You have sinned already. It's already deserving to go to hell because of one simple sin. However, all of that's been taken care of, and you no longer have to. You know? And of course, there's a lot of non-believers out there. They're like, well, God doesn't even exist and all this stuff. But that's a different story. Okay. I, for one, know that there is a God. And if you truly search for it, you'll find him too. And I know this is a very long video, but I think it really deserves a long video because it's a word from God and not my own. So thank you guys so much for joining me. And I hope that I could have changed someone's heart. I know not everybody would be changed, but I really do hope that there are some people who are changed. Okay. On side note, a little tiny note. I made these little bags with the little Tenchijk cat and stuff. I still have about 11 bags left, so there's a link down below if you guys want to have that. Please go ahead. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.